endorsed by the U.S. government or the federal Medicare program.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday. And indeed it is. It is Friday, August 10th. And if this is the first time you are tuning in to Health Futures, our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do that? We bring extraordinary guests to the show. The show is about bringing information, bringing knowledge, bringing content to make you, our listening audience, more informed and more up to date on the latest breakthroughs in healthcare and really our information for older adults and how they can live that healthier, happier life that we subscribe to. So today I have in our studio a return guest, and I'm welcoming him back because he is an extraordinary guest, always bringing great content to our listening audience. And that is Dr. Cary Schnitzer. He's the Chief Medical Officer for Optum Care Arizona. Welcome back to the show.
Bob, it's great to be back.
It's good to have you back. And, you know, so much is going on right now. And, you know, as we wind down the summer and we have these extraordinary monsoons, I understand the East Valley had an extraordinary one yesterday. I can't believe Tempe had over 3 inches of rain. And I was just talking to Leslie, who's here in the studio with us. Scottsdale just had one a couple days ago, and they're quite spectacular, but they can be quite damaging as well.
Yeah, no, it's been quite impressive. I mean, we all enjoy the rain in Phoenix, but it's even a little more than we normally get.
Exactly. You know, being that it is this time of year, and while many would say it's the dog days of summer, and we know us Phoenicians who have lived here, I've been here for 24 years, and Cary, you've been here a long time.
I'm actually a native.
You are a native. Wow, you and Geronimo.
Right, here. Exactly.
No, fantastic. So you're very accustomed to these storms, but more so you're accustomed to these summers. And here we are at really the second week in August, and we know that we still have probably another 6 or 7 weeks of summer. We're going to start seeing, you know, still seeing the 90s and 100 degrees. I say 90s. It's supposed to maybe get to 90s next week, but we'll see. We'll see. So knowing that, you know, we're dealing with heat and summer, you know, it's really a great opportunity to still have conversation right now about heat and sun and what those implications can be for older adults. So, you know, I wanted to really have you, who has a lot of experience in this, get a chance to talk to us about really the hot Arizona sun and how it can be really detrimental to our seniors here in our marketplace.
No, sure. So I always like to just first talk, because people hear the term skin cancer, and that's what we're all worried about, that there are really 3 types of skin cancer. One has a name called squamous cell carcinoma. Those tend to be local and don't tend to spread, but rarely they can. There's another that we call basal cell carcinomas. Those are the ones people will see like a little scaly dipped in sore on their face or on their body, and those again don't spread, but they do need to be treated. Then there's a third, which is what everybody worries about, which is melanoma.
And they should be.
Yes. Arizona actually has one of the highest melanoma rates in the country and actually in the world because we get so much. We are in an elevation that gets a lot of sun, and we get so much just regular sunlight and daylight here that other climates do not get.
Well, and it's interesting because our senator, Senator John McCain, had melanoma, and still, while he may not have a form of melanoma, he has cancer now, brain cancer, and you are much more proficient at this. I mean, I know people that had melanoma, and they say that you're really never completely in remission. You got to continuously get checked, but sometimes it cancer forms in other areas.
Yes, and now the thing with melanoma, and that's why it's so important to both do what will preventative treatments and in terms of and screening, is melanoma itself is one. It is preventable if we do the right, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But the other thing with melanoma, if we're able to get it early, it's actually got a 99%. What we never want to use the word cure, but at 5 years, 99% of people are still alive. Whereas, unfortunately, if we don't catch it early, the death rate can be really high. Whereas if it's unfortunately caught when it's already spread, there's only about 20% of people are still alive at 5 years. So that's why it's both important for prevention and recognition.
And I want to pick up on that recognition part, because recognition means screening. And you're advocating, especially if you live here, and you don't necessarily need to be an older adult. But if you're exposed to sun and you took a lot of exposure in as a young adult and a kid, you should be getting screened.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think the place to start is with your regular primary care physician, and then usually they'll start with the screening and then usually recommend a dermatologist if there's any question. And then a lot of people here end up with regular visits to a dermatologist because of the high risk here, and especially if they see
I'm one of those guys.
Oh,
I do. And I've been fortunate, but I get screened. I mean, you never know what's going to pop up.
Absolutely.
You really don't, and you need to take care of it, and that's the important thing. And like anything else, when it comes to screening, and I know we've talked about colorectal screening, and being ahead of the game by getting screened, you can get a jump start on a potential issue that could come up.
Absolutely.
So really the cancers, you mentioned them, squamous cell, basal cell, and melanoma. They're the three primary ones.
Those are the primary ones people will see. And like I said, they have a difference. A melanoma, not always, but in general, starts in a mole that's change color, enlarging. People see irregular borders. That's what you're kind of really looking for with the melanomas. Now, the other two types of cancers we mentioned, they tend to be kind of those. They're not usually a mole, but they're kind of a sore that doesn't go away. It's got kind of scaly flaking to it and slowly gets bigger. We still recommend those get treated, because with not, they can still keep enlarging. And I've seen people with very big scars from them, before cause, if it's near the bridge of a nose, can really be problematic.
Sure. And the treatment usually is having it removed, or
yes,
and that can be, I know that they use nitrogen or.
So there's and it depends obviously how big it is. Sometimes
right.
they will just freeze the mole with like a liquid nitrogen. Sometimes there's actually procedures that will carve out the base of it if it's a larger one to prevent it from coming back. So it's really, there's like about 3 or 4 different ways that a dermatologist would approach it.
And what's crazy, and we've talked about it on the show, and I've seen this too, is skin cancer doesn't have to necessarily show up on a form that was actually part of your body that's exposed to the sun. You can get it like on your foot and other areas too, right?
You can, and I'll tell you one of the kind of more worrisome ones. And if you see a change, I've known of a couple cases of people who actually got melanoma in the eye. So
in the eye,
actually can occur in the eye. So again, it's typically where there's exposure, but not always. So, and the other reason people get fooled, sometimes 1 or 2 bad burns really can increase the risk. So you don't think about it. You went on a boating trip, and I took my shirt off, or a woman was wearing her bathing suit and was out all day and got a few bad burns. That I really didn't get much sun exposure, but those bad burns can really lead. So then you can end up in areas where you didn't think you could have them.
Well, we're going to talk about protection when we come back in our second segment, but with the eye, and I want to talk about the eye, highly recommend wearing sunglasses with UV protection. Would that would probably help getting...
Sure, it would certainly help.
Yeah. And really talking about the burns, one of the things that I've heard people say is, most of the damage you do is in your youth, and it's usually before you're 18. And I don't know if that is a urban legend, or is there some truth to that? I
mean, there's definitely some truth to that, especially when you're looking at future screening. But we also have to remember, as we all age, our skin doesn't have the properties aren't as strong. So also we're at risk for getting sun exposure when we're older of creating, especially those basal cell and squamous cell carcinomas.
Well, it's interesting that Wes used this tune here to take us out. Here Comes the Sun, a little Beatles for us. So I really appreciate that, Wes. And It's very apropos for our conversation here today. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I've got Dr. Cary Schnitzer here in the studio. He's the Chief Medical Officer, Optum Care Arizona. We'll be right back.
Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right.
Join certified financial planner Nancy Fleming this and every Wednesday afternoon as she joins me for Financial Review. Nancy and I discuss an array of topics from Social Security, taxes, to what types of obstacles you can and will face in retirement. So join Nancy every Wednesday afternoon at 4:35 for the Financial Review. Want more, Nancy? Be sure to tune in every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for My Smart Retirement, right here on Money Radio.
The following update is for drivers who pay too much for car insurance due to DUIs, DWIs, tickets, or anything else. By now you know all too well that SR22 auto insurance is way more than you'd ever want to pay. You probably thought you didn't have a choice, but you were wrong. Our company specializes in low-cost, very affordable SR22 auto insurance for high-risk drivers. We know that mistakes happen, so take pride in being able to offer absolutely free quotes for this very affordable auto insurance meant specifically for you, the overpaying high-risk driver. We're standing by at 800-749-2984. The only thing you need to do is stop waiting around while your monthly payments stay as high as they are. Our knowledgeable representatives are ready for your call at 800-749-2984. The quote is free, and we'll even handle the filings so you could start saving money every month even sooner. Call 800-749-2984. That's 800-749-2984. Once more, 800-749-2984.
This is David Kogan with Eliances, ELIANCES.com. Unlock the secrets to Richard Branson, founder who we interviewed, Big Lots CEO, president of Telemundo, founder of North Pace, Chuck E. Cheese founder, and hundreds more every Monday at noon and Saturday at 7 a.m. on Money Radio. Go to Eliances.com, ELIANCES.com to unlock the secrets of some of the most successful people in the world. Eliances.com.
Vote informed on Election Day, August 28th, with the Voter Education Guide from Clean Elections. Find it in the mail or at azcleanelections.gov/voter education guide.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. And it is not just the beginning. We're in our second segment. So if you're tuning in, you're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and I've got Optum Care Arizona here in the studio. Dr. Cary Schnitzer, the Chief Medical Officer, and we are talking about skin cancer and ways to prevent it and signs to look for. And, I want to talk about who is susceptible to it. And, Cary, you and I talked about, the fact that, a lot of the exposure happens when you're younger. But there are a lot of ethnicities out there. And, certainly Caucasians are susceptible to it. But I also know that, people that are ginger, may be more susceptible to it. And how is it treated with African Americans? I mean, a lot of African American friends of mine, they always make comments that they got a burn or they're getting tan. I mean, but they are getting UV and they are getting exposure as well. So I want to talk about really the different, ethnicities and their exposure to it and what that means.
There's so people who are lighter skinned, so we use Caucasians, and you actually mentioned ginger, so people who have red hair and that really light skin definitely are at higher risk for melanomas and skin cancers. Now, but the caveat is that it doesn't mean it doesn't happen in other ethnicities. So, for example, African Americans, while they have a much lower incidence, they often, unfortunately, we find it at a later stage. So it's still important for people, whether they're Caucasian, African American, and also even Asians there's some unusual melanomas in Asians that everybody screen properly and take proper precautions.
So everybody's at risk.
Yes.
Everybody's at risk. It really is. I mean, my wife, Susie, who was on the show last week, I like to say guest host or co-host of the show. She knows I always refer to the sun as Big Red. And Big Red, does a number on a lot of things. And certainly our pool furniture and stuff that we put outside. I always, you and I, more than me because you've lived here all your life. I mean, it all has a certain shelf life because Big Red will just decimate it over time. And it certainly does that to our skin and does that to our bodies. And certainly at the same time, there's good, vitamin D you get from sunlight?
Right. We need, absolutely.
So we need sunlight.
Right. And vitamin D, that's part of the whole calcium metabolism, helps prevent osteoporosis. So it's not that sunlight is bad. We need some of it. And there's alternate forms of vitamin D, but the sun is an important place. But especially in Arizona, you don't need much of it. I think the number I've been quoted during midday, it actually takes 30 to 35 minutes for somebody of light skin to actually get a burn if they're out in direct sun. So it happens very quickly in Arizona.
I think the old cliche is 15 minutes naked in the sun a day is like a good recipe. Now, you're not naked, but I mean, getting some sunlight 15 minutes a day is probably
right.
a good prescription for people to follow?
Yeah, again, I don't like to prescribe a number, but that's definitely very reasonable. And the best thing would be to stay out of the sun between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Those are when the sun is actually at the most intense.
Especially this time of year.
Yes.
It really, really is tough. And, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize, too, is if it's an overcast day, am I still at risk for sun damage?
And so the answer is yes. The sun isn't as intense. There's less. But the risk is that you're out more because it's, you feel that somewhat shade, and then all of a sudden you've got 2 hours of sun exposure. The other thing I can relate as being a native Phoenician is we actually sometimes, when we're in Phoenix, we really think about the sun and the heat, and then all of a sudden we go to a different climate and use, Phoenicians like to go to San Diego. It's nice. And then we go out for 3 or 4 hours thinking it's nice and end up with very bad burns. So we have to also be thinking how you think in Phoenix may not be how you think in another place. You have to be aware of, it's not just temperature, it's that sun intensity.
Well, the other thing I want to share, too, is you mentioned San Diego. The mountains are something that you need to be just aware of because when you're at a higher altitude, the air is thinner, and the sun is much stronger. So we do have a lot of Phoenicians not only going to San Diego, we got a lot of them that go up to Flagstaff.
Yes.
And, that sun is much more intense because you're at a higher elevation and you can get exposure, so you certainly have to be wary of that as well.
No, absolutely. And again, it's so with Flagstaff, and I happened to just gone on vacation a couple of weeks ago up there and again, it's so nice. You're just out, you want to go out and walk around with shorts and be out for 2 or 3 hours, and I completely agree with you, Bob.
So let's, spend the last half of this segment talking about what can we do to prevent? There's sunscreens. There's definitely different clothing that we should wear. Talk to us. I mean, for me and you, we were talking about this at the break, and even Leslie. I mean, used to lather the oil on the iodine. Used to use the reflectors. Yeah. There was nothing called SPF back then. I don't even know what SPF stands for. I think it's sun protection factor, I'm going to guess, but there wasn't a thing called SPF. To walk us through what are some of the things that we can do to protect ourselves.
Sure, and I don't pretend to be an expert on chemistry behind it, but what I would say is my understanding has always been with the SPF, what it tells you is if you have an SPF of 30 or more, which is what we recommend to cover up, that it reduces the exposure that 30 hours with the suntan lotion on, or I should say the protection on, is equal to, it reduces your exposure to only 1 hour. So that's the ratio that I was always was explained. So one is just using the right sunscreens. And again, 30 or above. I'll be honest, my own family, I put on they now have like the 50s, and we use that when we go out. Again, avoiding the 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. times. Cover up with clothing. I mean, the best protection, if you got clothing over your skin, that avoids exposure. And then, as you mentioned, sunglasses.
And a hat.
And a hat. Absolutely a hat.
And real quick on SPF, and this is something I've heard on the radio and on television. Once you get to 30, you usually have about 97% protection. So if you go to 50, you might get another 1%. And if you go to 100, you might get...
Right, and you're more... Like I said, and that's why we always recommend 30 or above.
Right, so 30 should be good, but I think the other thing our listening audience needs to be wary of is reapplication. Because, just because you put it on doesn't mean you are protected by it. Because if you're going to play ball and you're running around, or you're going for a swim, you are going to lose some of that, so you have to reapply.
Yes, and I mean, and usually the sunscreens are good about telling you how often, but follow those instructions because absolutely, especially you put it on the morning, you go into the pool, you go do some other activities, get sweaty, and all of a sudden 3-4 hours later,
you don't really have sunscreen on
right.
anymore. And then the other thing about clothing is, I know this with my kids, and you probably do too. They do have special clothing, especially if you want to swim. You got UV protection on those clothings because if you're wearing regular cotton clothing, some of that sometimes leaks in UV, and you need to protect yourself.
No, and you're right, and that's kind of what I want to say new from when, again, being a native nation, we didn't have all of that. But with all our kids, you can actually get, where it's the shirts and the leggings or shorts, but that have UV protection built into them. So you're, again, decreasing that exposure.
And, I think people see suntans as a sign of health. And I know with women, there's makeup that has bronzers on it. And there's different ways you can get that coloration rather than baking in the sun. Because I will tell you, and you see this too, I usually can see somebody that might be my age, but their skin looks like it's about 30 years older. It looks like it's pruned. And you know that they've just baked out there. And, you really need to find other ways if you really want to have that glow and that bronze to maybe use makeup and other things that are out there.
No, and I agree, and we don't like to say this, but, that sun exposure now may make you look more aged as you get older, so even though it's kind of a temporary where you feel like it makes you look better, and I agree with the other approaches, if you really want that look, if getting it directly through the sun is not the way we want to go.
And then I want to finally say, you believe to avoid tanning beds.
Yes, I think same. You're running into the same issues. So.
And the crazy thing is that my kids go to U of A, and they live in these new apartments that have just been built there, and they're really nice and they're really expensive. And one of the allures to this one apartment complex that my daughter Jessica is in is they have a tanning bed in there, and it's free. It's free. So you have fitness and you have tanning beds and I think the message that you're trying to say to our listening audience is avoid tanning beds. Don't do tanning beds.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Again, in the short term, and especially with, your kids are college age, they think about now, but they want to be thinking 10 years, 20 years down the road, both protecting against cancer and, again, not to say it out of vanity, but they'll be a little more wrinkled and a little more prone to getting older, so they'll age them faster.
Wisdom certainly comes with age, and a lot of the things that we're talking about, I wish I knew 40 years ago. Certainly, I would have done things differently, but it is what it is, and we're smarter as a result of it, and we want to impart this information to you, our listening audience, and certainly, our children, protect them. Because, Big Red is out there, and it's nice, and it feels warm, and it feels good, and we need that to grow. But we also need to protect ourselves against the Big Red.
Yes.
Well, it's hard to believe we're coming up at halftime here at Health Futures. And, I want to really take a pivot in the second half and really talk about preparing older adults for travel. And, a lot of traveling is happening right now. You talked about going to Flagstaff and San Diego. And, with the heat and the monsoons, I want to talk about how can our older adults prepare for that. So make sure you come back in the second half. Halftime here at Health Futures. I've got Dr. Cary Schnitzer, Chief Medical Officer, OptumCare Arizona. We will be right back.
As we reach the bottom of the hour, we pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM.
From reality star to White House staffer, Omarosa is out with a book accusing President Trump of being a racist and using the N-word. The White House is calling her a disgruntled former employee. The woman known as the Manhattan Madam is expected to testify today before special counsel Robert Mueller's grand jury. Correspondent MJ Lee reports it's unknown why Mueller wants to speak with Kristen Davis.
Roger Stone himself has very much insisted that Kristen Davis doesn't know anything about the 2016 election, that she knows nothing about Russian collusion. Again, unclear why the Mueller team is interested in having Kristen Davis testify before the grand jury today.
Andrew Miller, a former associate of longtime Trump confidant Roger Stone, failed to appear before the Mueller grand jury. His lawyer says they intend to appeal the order to appear. The judge is threatening contempt charges. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 0.75%. Steep declines for the NASDAQ and S&P. I'm Mike Moss.
Have you watched? At CarMax, when we say we buy all the cars, we mean it. Over the last 20 years, we've purchased millions of cars from coast to coast. In the last year alone, we've bought a mountain of Mercurys, an armada of Nissans, a ton of Titans, an ocean of Pacificas, and a sea of Siennas. Not to mention a few Hellcats and a couple of Tornadoes. So no matter what you're selling, CarMax is buying. And we'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours. CarMax. We buy all the cars.
Visit CVS.
Whether it's back to school or back to routine, we've got you covered for less. Only at your neighborhood CVS pharmacy. Start your day off right with select General Mills cereal, 2 for $4. And 24 packs of Just the Basics water, $2.49. Restrictions apply. See CVS.com/weekly ad for details.
Visit CVS.
Retirement. Are you near it or already in it? Well, this place, Money Radio, is a place to stay to make sure it all works out the way you want. We're all about money right here.
Financial words of wisdom with Market Wrap host Mo Ansari.
There should be a little sign like there's on the side of cigarette packets. Picking tops and bottoms can be hazardous to your wealth. Don't try to do it.
It's helpful financial food for thought on your drive home with a host who tells it like it is. Market Wrap with Mo Ansari.
Catch Market Wrap on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM Monday through Friday at 5 p.m.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-865-0116 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-865-0116 to take your call now. Call 1-800-865-0116. That's 1-800-865-0116. Again, 1-800-865-0116.
The Army National Guard is committed to keeping the country safe and our community secure. Composed of hundreds of thousands of citizen soldiers from all walks of life, the Guard is always ready to respond to local or national emergencies. We protect the homeland. We're always there when called upon, and in every state and territory, we stand guard for our communities. To learn more, log on to NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Arizona Army National Guard. Aired by the Arizona Broadcasters Association and this station.
Bubba Burger is America's favorite burger. Bubba Burger offers something for everyone at the grill. Beef, turkey, and veggie burgers. The brand, the quality, the convenience. You'll never bite a burger better than a Bubba.
Bruce Vail with Your Money Now. The Food and Drug Administration approved the first drug that uses a gene silencing technique based on research that garnered a Nobel Prize for its pioneers more than a decade ago, but which drug makers have found difficult to translate into effective medicines. Alnylam Pharmaceuticals' Onpatro is the first FDA-approved treatment for peripheral nerve disease caused by a rare genetic disorder. The drug targets disease-causing genes by destroying certain RNA in the body. General Electric shares are down more than 1.5%. GE reportedly is preparing to sell its power conversion business, formerly known as ConvertTeam. GE paid about $3.2 billion for the business in 2011. Bloomberg is reporting the company could sell it for about $1.5 billion. Elsewhere on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 201 points. The Nasdaq Composite is down 50. That's your Money Now.
If you wear a denture, are you sure your breath is clean and fresh? Try Polident. It's specifically designed to clean a denture because it's tough on odor-causing bacteria, but gentle on the denture itself. Polident has a 4-in-1 cleaning system with 4 powerful ingredients that work together to deep clean your denture. It kills 99.99% of odor-causing bacteria in laboratory testing and helps to remove stains. Feel confident and clean every day with Polident. Available at Walmart for a low price every day.
Stocks are soaring, and construction spending across America has been on the rise. If you've been waiting to build, the time is now. Whether you want to expand your business or you want to build a new garage, call General Steel today. Our metal buildings are custom designed for your needs. For example, a 40 by 60 is a great space for an auto shop or 3-car garage. And if you call General Steel today, it's on sale now for under $25,000. Call 866-95-STEEL. 866-95-STEEL. That's 866-957-8335.
Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all the way. If we keep on the sunny side of life.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. And Wes, I'm not sure what that is. What are we listening to?
That's the Carter family, of course.
The Carter family. All right.
Keep on the sunny side.
There you go. Thank
it's
you.
Old bluegrass.
There you go. I like that. There you go.
There you go.
Let's hear a little bit more. You still got it going?
Keep on the sunny side of life.
Keep on the sunny side of life. All right. Thank you, Wes.
There we go.
Well, if you're just tuning in, we're on our third segment, and I've got Dr. Cary Schnitzer, who's the Chief Medical Officer for Optum Care Arizona, here in the studio, and we have been talking about skin cancer and preventative techniques and ways to prevent it, what to look for. And if you missed those first two segments, you can catch them right up on our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button, hit the drop down to the second button there, and you'll hear third button there. You'll hear the radio shows, about 200 of them, but you'll catch the first two segments that we just covered. So here we are in our third segment, and I really wanted to get a chance to talk to Cary about, preparing older adults for travel. And this is a time of year, especially the dog days of summer. We're coming up on Labor Day, and I wanted to ask Cary if he could just share with our listening audience some of the tips, some of the things that we should be looking for as we get ready to do some summer traveling.
No, sounds good. And I think nowadays we just take for granted how much we travel now. It used to be, and I remember 20 or 30 years ago, people get up in a suit and tie. Going traveling was like a big deal. And it's something you really thought. Now we just jump on a plane and don't think about it, and we don't.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I mean, where are those days? I was just traveling a couple weeks ago, and I saw this young teenage kid. He had flip-flops on. He dumped the flip-flops and put his feet up on the chair in front of him. I mean, how disgusting is that?
Yeah, that's
it really is gross.
Right.
I mean, what happened to those days about traveling? I remember seeing pictures of my grandmother and my grandfather on a cruise ship, and he was in a formal tuxedo, and she was dressed to the nines. I mean, times have changed.
Right, times have changed, but travel's still hard. So we take it for granted that traveling is, like you said, somebody going in flip-flops is like, running across the 20 minutes to a store across town. It really isn't. There's a lot of thought, and especially as people get older, there's a lot of planning that we need to be thinking about as we're preparing for that trip.
Well, help us, what we should be really thinking about. I know that, boomers, which I am one of them, and I know that you are too.
Yes.
You had shared some information. Take about 4 to 5 leisure trips a year, and older adults do the same, right?
Absolutely. No, so I like to say, one of it's probably start with your doctor's office, and simple things. Make sure your vaccinations are up to date. Sometimes people go to exotic places, and your doctor can check if you need vaccinations for that. But simple things: is your tetanus vaccine up to date? All things that you don't want to be trying to search out for health care, preventative care while you're out traveling. So one is to make sure you've done that. Make sure you get a list of your medications together, not just in bottles, but have a prepared list so it's with you in case something happens. Your allergies are listed somewhere. You have that all available, whereas when you're at home, you're not thinking about that. Also, it's probably even a good idea to have a little medical history or summary of your surgeries and your medicine on a little piece of paper or somewhere all stored where it's just readily available when you're traveling.
You talk about medications. And, certainly, a lot of people, we live here in Arizona, they go to Cabo or they go to Cancun, they go south to Mexico. You have to make sure you bring your medications with you and enough, and make sure you refill them, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I would make plans for that. And you make a great point that you have enough medication. If for any reason that you're where it's a longer trip, you have arrangements that you're going to get the medications. And I know people talk that you can get medications filled outside of the country, but be careful. There may be different preparations. Even generics are not the same. My recommendation would be try to, if at all possible, stay with the same medications and the same that you've been filling in wherever you come from, wherever you are, to be just continuing that medication. Once in a while, you do have to use an outside pharmacy for emergencies, but as you mentioned, best to just have those medications with you.
And the other thing is when you're traveling, and I know this with my mother, don't check your medications. Carry them on with you because luggage does get lost.
Yes.
Yes, I just want to put that out there. Make sure you pack your medications, bring them on with your carry-on.
Yeah, we don't. Yes, it seems to be luggage was lost more often, but it still happens and delayed, and you don't want to be in that position.
Right. What other tips do you have for our listening audience?
One is, and it's going to sound basic, but check your insurance coverage. Make sure a lot of plans are actually more local and their network are set up locally. And then when you travel outside of, let's say, your state, because that's usually how the plan is set up, there's a different ways that the benefits work, and you want to understand that what will happen if you need to access care outside. Some only allow emergency care outside of their areas. Others allow full care, so you really need to know that. And what I would add is there is a certain population of us that spend, let's say, 3 or 4 months of the summer in cooler climates. So you really have to be thinking and planning, what is my care going to be looking like when I'm in those climates?
No one really thinks about that, do they? Your health plan. So you should contact your health plan directly or contact your broker to really make sure that you have coverage from where you're going.
Absolutely.
What's interesting for us, our listening audience knows this, we're in the home care business, and we do serve the All-Tex population, which is our state's Medicaid population. And it's interesting because we are a provider to Aetna, which is Mercy Care, United, as well as the Banner Family Network Plan. And, we have family members that are providing care. And just like you said, family members want to travel. And it's very different from home health where you have to be homebound. A Medicaid recipient doesn't necessarily need to be homebound, but if they're traveling and they go out of state or out of the country, they think that they can bring their family member and be a caregiver. Well, that's not so much the case, because we had a situation where the plan came back and said, you know what, we're not reimbursing this because he was out of the country.
No, you're right. And it's funny, a case came with us 2 or 3 months ago, and unfortunately we have a good team that could solve this, where a patient ended up in Texas and ran out of oxygen. So they had to, they have COPD and they're on oxygen and
they need it.
And they need it,
yeah.
And going on vacation, but the tanks ran out, and so for them it would have been less stressful. Unfortunately, we were able to help and find an emergency provider out there for them. But if we could have planned it for them, it would have made it less stressful, so they weren't trying to scramble with that. And for example, at Optum Care, that's something we're really good at helping. You can always reach out to, like you said, in terms of coverage with your health plan or your broker is very good, and then working with your network such as us will really help you plan that if you're dealing with a complicated thing, whether it's oxygen or an unusual medication that you need to get in another state.
No, that's really good to know. What other tips do you have that we should be really considering for our older adults and anybody that's doing some traveling?
Simple things. Make sure somebody knows when you're leaving and when you're going. Make sure if there's a family member, friend, people are knowing to look out for you. Some other simple things, if possible, take a nonstop flight. Just that changing planes and extending the hours is really it's hard on. We say it's hard on older adults, but it's hard on everyone. But I do want to say one caveat with that. If you do take a longer flight, it is good to get up, stand up a little bit, walk to the bathroom, maybe even if you don't really need the restroom, because there is always, whenever you're sitting for long periods, there is a little increased risk of things like blood clots and that form in people's legs, and we want to just prevent all of that. So that's my other little kind of side tip. Get up and go to the restroom a couple times and stretch your legs.
And stand back in the galley. I've done that before. The flight attendants, if you're not in their way, they'll be okay with that. I mean, it's hard to be sitting for long points in time. And you're right, for blood flow. But I do want to, accentuate something you talked about, or just, add more to it. And that is making sure family members know where you're going and when you are leaving and coming back. And I want to just share, not only letting them know where you're going when you're coming back, but how to reach you. And, Cary, you know this, and it's really hard as we age. I mean, unfortunately, we experience loss. And imagine if you traveled somewhere and you didn't tell anybody where you're at and you lost a family member, how do we reach you? So making sure that itinerary is well known and you leave that behind for family members to know that, hey, look, I'm going to Cabo and this is where I'm staying, so that if they need to reach you, they can.
Right. And then they aren't, what I'm going to say, for the reasons you mentioned. And also, I think we live in an age where we expect an answer with a text or something and that we can follow, and you may be in a place that it's not so available. Right. And then, it could cause a lot of worry and that lack of communication for all sorts of reasons. So,
I mean, we are a connected society, but some of us, especially older adults, are not.
Yeah.
So we need to sometime old school it.
I 100% agree.
So, and any other final comments on how we should be preparing older adults for the summer?
For summer or for the trip?
For the trip, summer travel.
Well, so actually saying all that, it goes together. So one is when you're traveling, as we mentioned, we're used to Arizona. Also prepare for both for summer travel and for winter travel. One, we come from a certain climate. You want to protect against the sun in other areas. But in the winter, the thing that especially people from Arizona who are natives, they don't dress warm enough when they leave. And especially for older adults, I mean, that's something simple. And just a couple other smaller points was things like do whatever you can to lower stress. If you check in your luggage, if you need a wheelchair, don't be afraid to ask for it. Do things to make the trip as enjoyable as possible for yourself.
And last thing I want to add is hydrate. Hydrate, because those flights will dehydrate you. So make sure you're drinking enough water and you bring water. We got a little John Denver taking us out. Rocky Mountain High, right?
Sunshine on my shoulders.
Sunshine on my shoulders. There you go. Perfect.
Close enough.
Close enough. It's a great way to go out on our third segment. Stick around. I've got Dr. Cary Schnitzer here in the studio from OptumCare, Arizona. We will be right back.
Sunshine almost always makes me high.
Join certified financial planner Nancy Fleming this and every Wednesday afternoon as she joins me for Financial Review. Nancy and I discuss an array of topics from Social Security, taxes, to what types of obstacles you can and will face in retirement. So join Nancy every Wednesday afternoon at 4:35 for the Financial Review. Want more, Nancy? Be sure to tune in every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for My Smart Retirement, right here on Money Radio.
Want to fly somewhere? Looking for cheap flights or cheap tickets? Then call. That's right. Call the low-cost airline travel hotline now for prices so low we can't publish them anywhere. Low-cost airlines has all kinds of cheap travel deals. Fly domestically and save up to 75%. You can even fly internationally and save even more. Yes, fly anywhere in the world and save a lot of money on your plane tickets. We'll even save you money with cheap travel deals on hotels, rental cars, even complete travel packages. So don't book your tickets until you call us first for the absolute cheapest prices on U.S. and international airline tickets and hotels. Call right now for prices so low they can't be published. Travel experts are here 24/7 to help. 800-611-7394. 800-611-7394. 800-611-7394. That's 800-611-7394.
The following update is for drivers who pay too much for car insurance due to DUIs, DWIs, tickets, or anything else. Our company specializes in low-cost SR22 auto insurance. We know that mistakes happen and offer free quotes for very affordable auto insurance meant specifically for you, the overpaying high-risk driver. The quote is free, and we'll handle the filing so you can start saving money. Call 800-749-2984. 800-749-2984. 800-749-2984.
It's summer here in Arizona, and the bugs are back. The experts at Truly Nolan are there to help. Call 1-800-GO-TRULY or visit trulynolan.com now to get $50 off pest control.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you, and Wes just brought us in with a little lover boy. I love that cowbell. You know, next time we do the show, you have to have that cowbell going, you know. What a great way to really end our show and really talk about getting into the weekend. There you go, the cowbell. I love that. If you're just tuning in, this is not a rock and roll station. This is Health Futures, taking stock in you. And I've got Dr. Cary Schnitzer here in the studio. He is the Chief Medical Officer from Optum Care, Arizona. We've covered a lot of material. We covered what to do to prevent skin cancer, signs to look for. We talked about preparing older adults for travel during the summer. And I really want to take this segment and really talk a little bit about Optum Care Arizona and what you guys do, and really talk about a little bit of the work that we do at Cypress Home Care Solutions. And, you know, Cary, we talked about it just before the show, and we talked about the letter that came out from CMS. And CMS has put a letter out reinterpreting the primary health-related benefits that are going to be there for the Medicare Advantage members. And, you know, one of them includes in-home care. And for me, my family's been in the business. We're in our 25th year. The industry is really somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. It's really nice to know that CMS is finally recognizing that in-home care is a benefit to members. And while I know that Optum Care Arizona doesn't know what that's going to look like yet, and I know that that's still being figured out, just the recognition for me is a big deal.
Right. And what the comment I can make is, you know, we forget that people get hospitalized and get sick because of what we want to use the term social reasons. It's not often. It's just, you know, they've become isolated and not connected. So just I will give my lay opinion, take off my chief medical officer hat. It's definitely something that benefits people as for the right, what I can see for the right. I don't like to use the word patient, for the right person. It's a great service you provide.
You know, the way I look at it is, you know, 1/3 of our population, 65 and older, and I'm painting a brush because in Atlanta, Georgia, it's 45%, and in San Francisco, it's like 48%, but approximately 1/3 of our population, 65 and older, lives home alone. And you talk about social isolation, you talk about health challenges that they deal with, but when they show up in the ER and they show up in a hospital, oftentimes those folks are getting discharged to go home. And if there's nobody there to help them, why not have somebody who's an in-home care person provide assistance to them so that they can recover, you know, help them, remind them about their medications, making sure they're eating their meals, you know, maybe going to the pharmacy to get those prescriptions, maybe going to the groceries to get the meals. So it is, you know, something for me to really see that CMS sees that as a benefit. And a lot of people don't know this, and I happen to know this from the president of the National Association of Home Care and Hospice. Medicare did not make this decision arbitrarily. They went through a 3-year test, and they had several tests going on at the same time, and they showed the benefit, which is exciting. It really is.
Right, and I suspect, without knowing details, because especially with the hospice experience, what has been found is a lot of times the home health aides are the ones who make a bigger difference in patients' lives. So maybe CMS is now looking at that the wisdom of seeing it in one venue of maybe we don't have to wait until somebody's at the very end of life to be looking at that type of care.
And then let's face it, I mean, we know that home is the most desired place to be. We know it's the least costly place to be. For CMS, they much rather have someone at home rather than in a skilled nursing facility because it's extremely costly. So stay tuned. It remains to be seen. I'm thinking that we may see something before October 1st. Hopefully we do. And I know Dr. Cary Schnitzer and I will be talking to learn a little bit more what that benefit is.
Right, and that's what we're in my position, we're waiting and seeing how this all – what CMS really, how they expound what it is, and we look, we're actually a network, so we work with the health plans and how they understand how that benefit would work for patients and families.
Love it. Well, I want to pivot and talk about your company, Optum Care Arizona. So what is Optum Care, and tell me a little bit about it, and tell me about what you guys do. I've had you on, but a lot of our listeners right now might be first-time listeners. What is Optum Care Arizona? We got a couple minutes so we can walk through that.
Oh, sure. So I can let you know, Optum Care Arizona, we're actually a physician network. We're a network of 600 primary care physicians and 3,000 specialists all through Maricopa County. We take care of we actually serve the health plans and work with them very closely and work really primarily with your physicians because we're a physician network. What we do is really provide really what I would say integrated and personalized care. What's unusual about what I say of different, what we call those networks when you're dealing with if you have a problem, when you call us, somebody answers the phone, and they stay with you on the phone until your problem's solved. We have our call center has won numerous national awards out of thousands of medical groups as being the top in the country. And we have something also called the Center for Service Excellence that really helps navigate referrals and difficult. So any difficulties, and our goal is to really make the system work for patients and families.
And it's interesting, as we wind down the show, I know we got about 30 seconds here. Optum Care Arizona really looks at the patients more as a customer because really that's what you're talking about. You answer the patient's issues on the phone. You're not going to get a recording. You get a live person.
Right.
And the other thing I just want to leave off with is that you have 3 stellar community centers throughout the valley. You got one up in Deer Valley. Where's the other 2?
One's in Goodyear, and the other one is in the Chandler-Sun Lakes area.
It's amazing because it's open to the public. You don't even have to be an
Don't have to be Optum Care. Beautiful fitness center, unbelievable classes, everything from healthy minds to Zumba classes, and just a great place to just hang out, enjoy coffee, and food with friends. So and other great programs.
We got to call it a wrap. Dr. Cary Schnitzer, Optum Care Arizona, thank you so much for being on the show. Make it a great day. Tune back next week.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit CypressHomeCare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.
Financial Words of Wisdom with Market Wrap host Mo Ansari.
Staying out of the market is the most dangerous thing you can do for your financial future.
If you continue to spend like a drunken sailor, you're going to run out of money. That's the reality. This is not poker. This is your financial future.
It's helpful financial food for thought on your drive home with a host who tells it like it is. Market Wrap with Mo Ansari.
Catch Market Wrap on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 Monday through Friday at 5 p.m.
Money
105.3 FM.
KFNN Mesa, Phoenix, and K287BX Mesa. This is where the Money Masters hang out every day, so sit in our next Masters class right here on Money Radio. Take a look at the market. Dow down 189 points at 25,319. S&P down 20 points at 2832, and NASDAQ down 50 at 7841.
When people want to talk about money, this is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin